So just when you thought death had finally run out of creative ways to ruin people's days, Final Destination 5 comes along and says, hold my scythe. With a return to quality, brutal kills, and one of the best twists in the entire franchise. This movie proves that sometimes the fifth time's the charm. What's up everybody, I'm Keelan, this is Kill the Credits, and today we're going to take a leap into my review for Final Destination 5. But before we get started, if you're new here, my entire channel is dedicated to all things horror. Deep dives, movie reviews, discussions, reactions, you name it, I do it. So if that's your vibe, be sure to subscribe so you can keep the conversations alive. Yeah, I rhymed pretty good there. So this is part 5 of my Final Destination review series leading up to the release of Final Destination Bloodlines. If you haven't already checked out my reviews for the previous films, go ahead and click the card up above and check those out first. And as I've said in every video thus far, there will be spoilers ahead, but if you don't care about spoilers, or if you just need a refresher on what's gone on in the franchise thus far, stick around because this video is definitely for you. And with all that being said, let's go ahead and discuss how Final Destination 5 brought this franchise back on track. So to give a little bit of plot, this time around, we follow Sam Lawton, an office worker who has dreams of becoming a professional chef one day. While on a company retreat, Sam has a terrifying premonition of a bridge collapsing, and that collapse will in turn claim multiple of his co-workers' lives. Freaking out, as one does when death starts to show sneak previews, he manages to save himself and a couple others from imminent doom. But if there's one thing that we've learned in this franchise, it's that death does not take rejection well. So, one by one, each of them start to meet their end in gruesome ways, forcing Sam and his friends to learn how to cheat death before it's too late. So first things first, let's go ahead and talk about the cast and the characters. One thing Final Destination 5 does really well is giving us characters that we actually care about and they feel like real people, rather than them just being there as death fodder. First we have Sam, played by Nicholas D'Agosto. He's a solid protagonist and definitely more engaging than the protagonist from the fourth film, Nick. He has goals, he has conflict, and he actually makes some pretty smart decisions, which, if you're a horror fan, you know is a rarity in the genre. Then we have Emma Bell as Molly, Miles Fisher, who plays Peter, and of course, the legendary Tony Todd reprising his role as Bloodworth. All the characters definitely feel much more fleshed out compared to maybe the cast of characters from the Final Destination. They feel more real, they feel more tangible, and you care about them more. And without that, this movie probably would have been a big disaster. So let's go ahead and talk about the things that I liked. Number one, this movie pretty much revived the franchise. You know, Final Destination 3, a lot of people like that one, but you know, there are people who said that's where the dip in quality started. And then we get the Final Destination. I mean, they tried to kill the franchise off there. That's why they called it the Final Destination rather than Final Destination 4. That one has a pretty big dip in quality compared to the first two. It brought the franchise back in a big way. Let's talk about that opening scene. The suspension bridge collapsing is one of the most well executed and dreadful opening scenes in the franchise. It's brutal, and it definitely taps into a real life visceral fear many people have of driving on bridges. I know both my parents are not keen on driving over big suspension bridges like that, so I'm sure they're not the only ones, and this movie just plays on that fear perfectly. Another thing I like is the expansion on the new rule set. So in a brief conversation with Sam, Tony Todd's character Bloodworth reveals that if you take someone else's life, you can steal the remaining years that their life had, essentially bypassing your own fate. That detail alone adds a whole new layer of tension, because at that point it's not just about avoiding sudden accidents, it's about whether or not the remaining survivors are going to start turning on each other. Another positive about Final Destination 5 is of course the kills, which, I mean, that's the whole reason we watch these movies in the first place, right? Is the intricate mousetrap style death sequences. And in my opinion, I think Final Destination 5 provides some of the most brutal death sequences in the entire franchise. We get an acupuncture scene, we get the LASIK eye surgery scene, the gymnast. This movie had me flinching more times than any other installment in the franchise. And then we have what I would say is the biggest positive that this movie offers, which is that twist ending that nobody was expecting, right? So this is where Final Destination 5 really cements itself as one of the best in the series. The entire movie is actually a prequel to the very first Final Destination film. So towards the very end, Sam and Molly both think they've escaped death, only to end up on Flight 180, the doomed plane from the first one. You even get a little scene of Alex Browning fighting against the flight attendants and getting removed off the plane from Sam and Molly's perspective. It's one of the best horror movie franchise twists in recent memory. And it makes rewatches really enjoyable because when you go back and watch, there are many subtle signs that show you it's actually a prequel, but they just don't throw it in your face to make it so obvious. I'm sure some people probably caught on beforehand, but for a lot of us, we completely missed it until the very end. But on that rewatch, I promise you, go back, you're gonna see plenty of little subtle moments that are gonna suggest that it lands before the first film. And as far as things that I didn't like about Final Destination 5, the only thing I could say is that some of the CGI looked a little wonky, but it definitely was an improvement compared to the Final Destination. That's really all I could say negatively. It's more of a nitpick than anything else, but that's really all I could come up with. Overall, I really enjoy Final Destination 5. So my final thoughts on Final Destination 5 is that it's easily one of the best sequels in the entire franchise, hands down. It brought back tension, creativity, and a bit of fun that made the earlier installments so memorable. And that twist ending, come on. With that being said, my final rating for Final Destination 5 is going to be an 8.5 out of 10. I liked it just as much as Final Destination 2, so that's, where I have to land it at in my rating scale. And now it's your turn. What did you think about Final Destination 5? Do you love the twist ending as much as I do? And where would you rank it in the franchise? Let me know down in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to like, share, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload.